We continue with our business IGCSE class. Today's topic in business is sources of finance, chapter 25. Sources means ways in which you can find funds. Source means links, ways you can find finance. And what is finance itself? Finance is the disbursement of fund from the surplus unit to the deficit unit. So that means there's money somewhere, there's cash somewhere, but it needs to be used in another place. So taking that cash that is stocked there, taking it to where it is needed, that is finance. Do you understand what finance is here? So it is the disbursement of fund from the surplus. Surplus means where you have it in abundance to the deficit unit where you need it most. So that's why they say, oh, I have a project. I don't have a finance. I need to finance my project. I need you to finance my project. You say, it's a project, it's a business, but it needs financing. So where do you get this finance from? You get it from a source. So it could be internal, it could be external. We'll get there anyway. But what you have to understand is that when it comes to finance, it means disbursement of cash from where you have it so much to where you need it so much. Clear?
So once I get the money, I'll put it somewhere else. I'll fund it somewhere else.
The money is somewhere. You need to find it. You need to source for it so that you can use it to finance your project. That is what finance is about. You wouldn't get cash. If I have cash, now I have cash. If I don't have anything to do with cash, then I can give it, I can loan you out, I can borrow you. I can give it to you as a loan. But if I need it to do some things too, I won't be able to give it to you. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So that's why we said finance is the disbursement from the surplus unit to the deficit unit. I have it surplus.
Surplus unit.
Surplus unit is where the money is. It could be the financial institution. The deficit is the business that needs the finance.
That's disbursement.
Disbursement, the process of taking cash from here down there is disbursement.
And funded to the project.
Yeah, that is disbursement.
That's disbursement.
Disbursement is how you take that money from the surplus to the deficit.
Yeah.
So
okay,
the process is the disbursement.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, so we go down anyway. The need for funds. Finance is the same as fund, right? We have, what are the reasons why we need funds? What are the reasons why we seek for finance? Short-term needs. So we might need finance, we might need funds for a short-term purpose. And when we talk about short-term here, we're talking about period within a year. Period within a year. Period within a year. That means it must not exceed 1 year. That is short-term. That's why I said period within a year. So let's read anyway. Once the business starts trading, it will earn revenue. This money can be used to meet the day-to-day running cost of the business, such as wages, raw materials, components, and premises and utility bills. However, sometimes the revenue from sales may not cover all expenditure. This is when the business will need to borrow money. The finance needed to fund the day-to-day expenditure is usually called short-term finance. This is because it's usually repaid within 1 year. So the first reason why we need finance could be for short-term needs, for short-term purpose. And when we need short-term needs here, when we talk about what we meant by short-term is we need funds, we need cash to meet up with the day-to-day running of the business. So we run, as a business will run different expenditure. That means you have to pay your wages, you have to pay electricity bills, whatever bills you have to pay, utility, you have to pay all these bills. So these are day-to-day running of, these are day-to-day activities. We call them revenue expenditure. Are you with me? So this kind of expenditure, your revenue might not be enough to fund them. That is why you need short-term finance. So the finance you get, the money you borrow within a year, the money you borrow that you have to return within a year is a short-term finance or a short-term loan. Do you get short-term here?
Maybe.
Short-term is within a year.
Yes.
Why do you need a short-term loan? You need a short-term finance or a short-term fund because you want to use it for the day-to-day running of the business. The business has to be, the business has to function. The business has to be in operations. every day. But your revenue, what you make from sales, is not enough to fund the day-to-day running of the business.
Yeah.
So that means you need finance from somewhere.
From somewhere.
That is a short-term need. And that is what we call short-term. Short-term needs goes with short-term finance. So you need short-term finance for a short-term need. Short-term need means day-to-day running of the business. Like maybe you want to pay your wages, you want to pay electricity, whatever utility bills you have to pay. These are short-term needs. So short-term needs warrant short-term finance. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So that was the first reason. The second one, long-term needs. For long-term needs, they said businesses often raise money and take much longer than 1 year to repay. What is owed? This is called long-term finance. Some long-term finance comes from the owners. This is called capital and often remains in the business permanently or until the business stops trading. Other long-term sources may be borrowed from financial institutions such as banks. Long-term sources of finance are often used to buy resources that will be used repeatedly by the business for long periods of time. Examples would be machinery, tools, equipment, property, and office furniture. So, we call it long-term finance because we need it for a long time. It is used for long-term needs. Long-term finance is used for what? Long-term needs. And when we talk about long-term needs, we are talking about needs that would have impact in the business for a longer period of time. So we need, for example, we need a long-term finance, and also you have to put in mind that a long-term finance is that finance, or a long-term loan is that loan that you can pay back after 1 year.
It can be 2, 3.
More than 1 year. More than 1 year. More than 1 year. Yes. 2, whatever it is, but it's more than 1 year.
Okay.
That's why I call it long-term. So, what are those things you would need a long-term finance for? You want to buy equipment, you want to buy machinery, whatever capital you want to invest on, you need long-term finance because the cost of capital, the cost of investing in capital goods are high. So you don't need a short-term finance for that.
Yeah.
Do you get it now? So for long-term needs, like things that you need for the organization, things that you need for the business, you need a long-term finance. And most of the time, the long-term finance comes from the owners of the business. So when this finance comes from the owner of the business, we call it capital.
What?
Capital. I told you about capital before.
Yeah.
The money invested by the owners of the business.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term finance. Why is it long-term? Because you're not even going to return it. It stays with the business.
Yeah.
It's a permanent money, cash that stays with the business until the business stops trading.
Like office equipment.
Office equipment are purchases of long-term assets.
Yes.
I'm talking about capital, money here. Money. Capital we're talking about here is, I'm not talking about capital goods. I'm talking about capital, which is a money invested by the owner of the business into the business.
Yeah.
So that is capital. So capital is a long-term source of finance.
Sure.
Because it will not be returned back to the owner of the business. It is a permanent cash that stays with the business. It's a permanent fund. It only goes back to the owner of the business if the business stops trading. That means it stops being in operation. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So that's a long-term need. Any question about long-term need?
No.
So we need a long-term needs a long-term. A long-term needs implies that we need a long-term finance.
Yeah.
And what are the long-term finance what are those long-term needs? It could be equipment, it could be machinery, it could be tools. These are what long-term finance should be used for.
Long-term finance can be used for long-time things.
Needs. Yes, is it clear?
Long-time needs.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
The third reason why we could need finance is startup capital. Funds are most needed when first setting up a business. This is because a lot of resources are needed before trading can begin. Some of these resources are one-off items. For example, a new restaurant would need to buy cookers, refrigerators, utensils, furniture, glassware, and other equipment, including knives, forks, and plates. Once these one-off costs have been met, they may not be repeated for many years. Other startup costs might include research, converting premises, legal fees, websites, design, and marketing. So another need for finance could be startup capital. For startup capital, we're talking about money needed to start up the business. Without this money, the business can never be in operation. It might be one-off thing. When we call it one-off because this finance, this cash spent would not be repeated. One example of one-off is you wanting to start a school.
Yeah.
The first thing you buy is the building, right?
Obviously.
You're not going to buy the building next year again. As soon as you bought it, as soon as you buy it now, it is forever. Yes or no? So that's a one-off something.
Yeah.
So sometimes businesses would need finance as a startup capital. You understand what startup capital is now?
Yeah, sure.
Money needed for the beginning to launch a project.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Understand. So, Mr., what is the difference between long-term needs and startup capital?
The name itself says it. Capital is the amount of money put into the business by the owner of the business.
Yes.
It might not be startup. The owner might be injecting cash into the business. In as much as the owner of the business is putting money into the business, it is named capital. Startup we're talking about means what we put together to make the business to commence. The commencement of the business. So money needed for the commencement of the business is commencement. To starting the business.
Starting, okay.
To launch the project. That is a startup capital. Clear? Another reason for sourcing for finance is that.
Yeah.
The next one is expansion. Some businesses, expansion means the business is growing, right? If the business is growing, sometimes you might need finance.
Yeah.
So do you get the point I'm making here? So the fourth reason why we need to source for finance is because of expansion.
Obviously.
And when we talk about expansion, it might mean that the business wants to expand the capacity. It's growing. It might mean that the business wants to develop a new product. Sure. It might mean that the business is having a new branch abroad. We have a branch in Tripoli. We need a new branch in Lagos, Nigeria.
Yeah, expand.
So that would be the reason why we need finance. And the last one here is diversify. That means diversification, which means the business wants to spread its risk.
Yes.
It wants to invest in different product portfolio.
Yeah.
These are the reasons why
like
we need.
M&M and Mars. There are two different products, but
for the same company.
Yeah, in the same company.
So a business might want to diversify.
Yes.
That's why it needs funds. So these are the reasons why there's a need for finance. 1, for expansion. 2, for startup capital. 3, long-term needs. 4, short-term needs.
Sure.
And capital itself. Is it clear?
Clear.
Any question about that?
No.
So we'll go to different types of finance now.